Most people are thrilled when their flight lands 2 hours early. For me, those 120 minutes destroyed my entire life. I was supposed to be at a tech conference in Chicago for another 2 days, but I wrapped up the meetings early, desperate to surprise my fiancée, Chloe. We were 3 months away from our wedding, a massive 6-figure event hosted in the sprawling 5-acre backyard of the estate my grandfather left me. But as my Uber pulled up to the gates of my property, my heart dropped. The security gates were wide open. The long, winding driveway was lined with sleek black luxury SUVs. And from the back of my house, I could hear the faint, unmistakable sound of a string quartet playing Pachelbel's Canon in D.
I told the Uber driver to drop me off at the edge of the property line. I grabbed my carry-on, my mind racing through a dozen impossible scenarios. Maybe it was a surprise party for me? No, that made no sense. My birthday was months away. Maybe Chloe was hosting a high-end charity event and forgot to tell me? I crept along the side of the stone mansion, keeping low behind the manicured boxwood hedges. The air smelled like expensive catering, seared ahi tuna and champagne. The closer I got to the backyard, the louder the music grew, punctuated by the polite, upscale chatter of a wealthy crowd. I peeked through the wrought iron trellis leading to the main lawn. The entire backyard had been transformed into a breathtaking white-on-white wedding venue. Hundreds of white orchids hung from custom timber arches. Silk drapes fluttered in the breeze. Silk-covered chairs were filled with elegant guests in black tie attire. At the front of the aisle, standing before an officiant beneath a massive floral canopy, was a man in a bespoke tuxedo. It wasn't me. It was Julian Vane, a wealthy real estate developer whose family moved in the same elite circles as Chloe's parents. Then the music swelled, changing to the traditional wedding march. Everyone stood up. I looked toward the French doors of my own house. Emerging from the master suite patio was Chloe. She looked stunning. She was wearing a custom, intricate lace gown, the exact wedding dress I had paid $15,000 for just last month. Holding her arm was her father, Arthur, beaming with pride. My fiancé was walking down the aisle, at my house, to marry another man.
I stood frozen in the shadows, my phone trembling in my hand, my brain completely short-circuited. I wanted to scream, to run out there and flip the tables, but a cold, calculated survival instinct took over. Instead of making a scene, I hit record on my phone. As Chloe reached the altar, Julian took her hands. I looked closely at the crowd. That's when the second wave of betrayal hit me. Chloe's entire family was there. Her mother was crying tears of joy in the front row. Her bridesmaids, girls I had taken out to expensive dinners, girls who called me brother, were smiling warmly. Even a few of our mutual friends were in the crowd. Everyone knew. Everyone. Except the guy paying the mortgage on the venue. I listened intently as the officiant began his speech. We are gathered here today in the beautiful home of Chloe's late grandfather, the officiant boomed through the high-end sound system.
My late grandfather. They were literally lying to Julian's family about who owned the estate to make Chloe look like she came from old money. Suddenly it all clicked. Chloe's family had been secretly broke for years, clinging to high society by a thread. I was a self-made tech entrepreneur. I had money, but I didn't have legacy. Julian Vane did. Chloe had used my house, my money, and my absence to pull off the ultimate social climbing heist. She couldn't afford a venue like this on her own, so she used mine while she thought I was 800 miles away.
I stopped recording. A manic, burning calmness washed over me. I wasn't going to just interrupt this. I was going to ruin him. I quietly slipped back into the house through the basement entrance. I bypassed the caterers in the kitchen, who were too busy to notice me, and walked straight upstairs to the master bedroom. I opened the safe, grabbed the master deed to the property, and grabbed the remote control to the home's commercial-grade whole property automation and security system. I walked back downstairs, bypassed the French doors, and stepped directly out onto the lawn, right as the officiant said, "If anyone here objects to this union, speak now or forever hold your peace." "I object," I said, my voice echoing clearly over the microphone system. The entire crowd gasped, turning around in unison. Chloe's face drained of all color. She looked like she had just seen a ghost. Her father stood up, his fists clenched, while Julian looked back and forth between me and Chloe, completely bewildered. "Mark?" Chloe stammered, her voice cracking. What are you doing here?" "I live here," I said, walking down the center aisle, holding up the deed to the house. "Which is more than I can say for you or your family as of right now." Julian stepped forward, shielding Chloe. "Who the hell are you? Get off this property." "My name is Mark. I'm Chloe's actual fiancé," I said, tossing the engagement ring she had left on her nightstand right at Julian's feet. "And you're standing in my backyard. Chloe's family doesn't own this estate. I do. And this wedding is officially over." Chloe's mother let out a muffled shriek. Julian turned to Chloe, his eyes wide. "Is this true? Who is this guy?" Chloe burst into frantic tears. "Julian, let me explain. He's crazy. He's just an ex." "I'm the ex who paid for that dress you're wearing," I interrupted. I pulled out my phone and pressed a single button on the home automation app. Instantly, the industrial commercial lawn sprinklers, the ones meant to water 5 acres of grass, erupted right beneath the rows of chairs. High-pressure water blasted the elite guests, drenching their $1,000 tuxedos and silk gowns. The string quartet scrambled to save their instruments. The custom floral arches collapsed under the sudden downpour. It was absolute, glorious chaos. "You have 10 minutes to get off my land," I yelled over the roaring water and screams of the guests, "before I have the police arrest every single one of you for trespassing." Within 20 minutes, my property was a ghost town. The caterers fled, the guests drove off in their ruined luxury cars, and Julian's family left in a separate vehicle, leaving Chloe sobbing on the muddy, ruined lawn in her soaked dress. I didn't give her a second glance. I locked the doors, called a locksmith, and spent the night drinking an expensive bottle of scotch she had bought for Julian. The fallout was spectacular. Julian's family immediately called off their arrangement, horrified by the fraud. Chloe's family was completely ostracized from the high society circles they worshipped, and I filed a massive lawsuit against Chloe and her father for property damage and fraud. I felt entirely vindicated. I had won. Or so I thought. 2 weeks later, I was cleaning out the master closet, throwing away the rest of Chloe's things, when I found a hidden compartment in her jewelry box. Inside was a burner phone, still turned on. I opened the messages. There were hundreds of texts between Chloe and Julian going back a year, but it wasn't a romance. The text from Julian the morning of the wedding read, "The offshore wire transfer went through. Once the marriage license is signed today, your family's debt to my father is completely wiped clean, and the deed to Mark's estate transfers to our shell company. He has no idea his grandfather signed the backup title over to my dad's firm before he died. Let the idiot think he owns the place. By tomorrow, we evict him." I froze, looking down at the text, then looked out the window at my beautiful, quiet estate. My grandfather hadn't left me the house. He had lost it to Julian's family years ago. The wedding wasn't a betrayal of a relationship. It was a coordinated legal trap to seize my home. And by ruining the wedding and stopping the marriage license from being signed, I hadn't saved my house.
I had just triggered a default clause that legally forfeited the estate to Julian's family immediately. Right on cue, a black car pulled up the driveway. A man in a suit got out, walking toward my front door with an eviction notice in his hand.